So
No.
I got all excited when I saw the latest edition of the Dane Brugler mock draft in The Athletic. And I was more excited when it says mock 2.0 round 1. Indianapolis Colts. Wait, what? What did I miss?
They got whites and fish.
What did I miss? This is parenthetically via Chicago. And I'm like, yeah, that's
Chicago.
That's what I want to see. And he's got the Colts taking Bryce Young, quarterback, Alabama. And then in italics underneath, projected trade. Number 1 for the number 4 pick, the number 35 pick,
Okay.
and a 2024 first round pick. So before
So a swap, a second, and next year's first.
Yeah, swap a high second and next year's first. But let me ask you, first, before I even get into the discussion of who he thinks the Bears would take, blah, 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 is that enough?
I mean, when you look at the Trey Lance deal, it doesn't feel like it feels kind of conservative.
Mm-hmm.
Especially for the number 1 pick as opposed to the number 3 pick that the 49ers and the Dolphins were dealing with for Trey Lance.
It doesn't sound like enough. It just first blush, and it's nice. I liked it, but I would like more.
I mean, I think if I'm sitting in the seat, it's probably swap your high 2, next year's 1, and next year's 2.
And now we're talking. That's better.
I think here's the problem. Slavko and I were talking about this yesterday quite a bit at NBC Sports Chicago. Well, actually, we were just at NBC5, but still, NBC Sports Chicago, part of us. You know the drill. The things that we were discussing was the fact that the leverage here is still not as big because of Justin Fields. Like, you can say, oh, it's going to have, somebody's going to have to blow me away. But come on. Like, this is...
You still got to have it if you got to have it, though. And it's
but
because...
let's go back to, like, Jimmy Garoppolo, for example, when Ryan Pace got rooked by the rookie. How many times have we heard the gray area surrounding Jimmy Garoppolo? For years. So the concept of, at some point, them needing a quarterback in San Francisco was going to come up. And it ultimately did, as we know, Trey Lance. So I feel like in this case... it is going to be a little more reasonable because the leverage just doesn't swing that wide.
But here's how it plays out. He said the trade makes sense for both sides. The Colts have a clear need at quarterback with an owner and GM motivated to get it right. Chris Ballard, previously a scout in Chicago, is very familiar with Ryan Poles. The two worked together for 4 years in the Chiefs front office. It would mark the third time in the last 25 years the Colts held the number 1 pick, and it worked out well the other two, Peyton Manning and Andrew Luck. He's got the Texans taking Will Levis, number 2. The Cardinals then grab Will Anderson. And it says the Bears at 4, Jalen Carter. For the next few months, Bears fans will be debating between Anderson and Carter. In this scenario, the decision is made for them. Carter's young, which is evident in several areas of his game, but it's also clear how uniquely talented he is with a combination of body control and power. His block destruction and disruption are special. For Bears fans screaming that the return in this trade scenario isn't enough, there would be added value in trading back with the Colts as opposed to the Raiders at number 7 overall, the Panthers number 9 overall, or another team, because of the opportunity to stay within striking distance of the 2 elite defensive prospects in the draft. That should give the Colts a hypothetical advantage if the Bears end up with multiple offers to consider.
I would also offer up that in this, we could see a trade back even after, like, let's play it out. Let's say that the Bears trade with the Colts. That, yes, Carter and Anderson are 2 really special defensive players. I love them both, and they both would serve a real need on the Bears defense. But if Poles could then trade to the Raiders, for example, he still is in striking distance of some of the offensive linemen that he might covet. So I mean, it's interesting. I do think that it's a little light. The idea of the number 1 pick, and just because those 2 guys work together, I don't expect that Ryan Poles, and he shouldn't be giving a discount to Chris Ballard. And it also doesn't take into account the run. on quarterbacks. Like, it's all well and good to talk about that in the third week of January. But once pro days happen and once teams get a taste and they sit there and go, we got to have Will Levis. We got to have him. We've got to have Bryce Young. He's everything that we want. Then I think the bidding is going to go up. Think about it. Look at what the Bears gave up for Chase Claypool, which essentially turned into a number 1 pick, right? And pick number 32. And that was for a receiver at the trade deadline. And there were multiple suitors for that receiver at the trade deadline. So one would think that if you're talking about the number 1 pick in the draft and the opportunity to draft a franchise-changing quarterback, that price is going to go up.
I do think, though, that, for example, whenever there's a regime change, you know that there's going to be player changes. And it's a lot of times with the players that they know they can get the most value for via trade. And I think about DeAndre Hopkins in that respect. That Claypool trade, until we see something that makes us feel better about the fact that the Bears only have 1 pick in the top 50, is going to sit with me for a long time, given the production we saw.
As it should.
I will also say this. I am bullish on Peter Soronsky. And I think that he, from Northwestern, I think that if the Bears somehow ended up getting him, say they don't start defensively, I would be very happy with that. Brugler right now has him picked going 8th to the Falcons.
Uh-huh.
And to me, that is very much in my who's my guy, he's one of my guys. Outside of, I think, Will Anderson.
Yeah, and in my scenario, you can get him.
Yes.
Like, yeah, you trade back to 4, then trade back to 7, and get more and more picks. And he's still in your window of players that because you need everything. Like, that's the other part of this. While the Bears would like to have Carter or Anderson, and I think Carter more because of the position that he plays and the importance in Matt Eberflus's defense for a 3 technique, they need everything. So you can't just pin them down and say, well, the Bears have got to get help defensively. Yeah, and they also need an entirely new offensive line.
That's it to me.
So they can go in a lot of different directions depending on what they get back. And if they were to make multiple trades or a trade that gives them multiple picks in this year's draft, that gets them closer to being a legitimate championship window team.
And just think about what you saw out of the Lions in the second half of the season. And that doesn't happen unless you go back-to-back first-round picks with guys who are considered some of the best talent at their position on the lines.
Yeah, I thought you were going to go a step further and say they got to block Aiden Hutchinson for a while.
Yes.
That too.
Yeah, right.
Remember Aiden Hutchinson, who they drafted, who showed you exactly where the ground was the entire game?
Probably, and especially that was the one guy who, when you ran read option against him, he's a tough read. He can make you commit first because of he's got lightning quick reactions and makeup speed.
Just think if Skoronski's on that line, how that changes just to be. That's not even 20% better. It is by definition, but we all know it's way more than that. What that would do for this offensive line. And yes, I know we talked a lot about where Penei Sewell fit into that draft where he was drafted, but you can't argue with the results when you're seeing it happen like that. Build on the lines. That's all I'm trying to ask. If you can get some extra value, fantastic. But I am pretty adamant that something needs to happen there in addition to what they have right now. And Braxton Jones, I hope you get many millions of dollars and you're in a position that makes you comfortable and you're not upset with yourself after games. Nobody's hating on you. But when it comes to just what the need is, let's help people out here.